the idea of digital collectibles came on the scene, I remember thinking, this is something that blew my mind. Like right away, I got it. This Web3 world is a long game.
Can you tell us a little bit about Degen Arcade, what you built over at NFT.NYC, and what you got going on next?
Connection that people are having in real life is really, really important, especially in this kind of fully transparent. I was like, I need to create an arcade that is full of NFTs. And I'm going to do it for the next NFT.NYC. But the big picture of the Degen Arcade was to make Web3 accessible for everyone. And that's what we're doing. I could break some news here.
I'm never going to say no to that. Go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't call it an old. It's a vintage style arcade in the heart of Wynwood, Miami. And it is going to be wild.
Hello, and welcome to the Brand Next podcast. I'm your host, Justin Payton. I'm also the writer of the Brand Next newsletter. Newsletter plus podcast means two great sources of Web3 content. So hit subscribe, give us a 5-star review. It really helps with the reach and the growth of the podcast and everything else. Today, I've been thinking about Art Basel. It's coming up next week, and while I can't be there in person, FOMO's got the better of me, and I wanted to hear from someone who would be. Lucky for us, Jeremy Penn has joined today in order to drop some alpha and tell us what he and Degen Arcade are going to get up to in Miami. After what they pulled off at NFT.NYC, they have a lot to live up to, but we get a little sneak peek on the plans today. He shares that and so much more. But instead of me chatting, let's hear what he has to say. Hello, Jeremy. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're lucky to be joined by Jeremy Penn, an artist and longtime player in the NFT space. And so we're going to get to learn a little bit about that art scene, about what he's got going on, about what's moving forward with Art Basel coming up, talk a little about what's going on there as well. But I think it'd be great, Jeremy, if you tell people a little bit about yourself, how you got into the space. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name is Jeremy Penn. I'm an artist based out of Brooklyn, New York. I have been in the art scene for quite a while now. I had my first solo show in 2007, and ever since then had the opportunity to travel around the world and exhibit my work in some really unique places and work with local street artists around the world. It's been a fascinating journey, especially the past 5 years. Even prior to COVID, I was in Cuba working with a lot of artists there. And then COVID hit and I had to move my studio to what wasn't my in-laws at the time, my girlfriend's family's house. And now they're my in-laws. So I moved it to Connecticut. Now we're back in Brooklyn. But I've always been someone who kind of looked and seeked out new technologies or a different way of doing things. My parents used to think that I was either going to be, this is their line, I was either going to be a serial killer or I was going to do something profound in the world. I don't know if I'm doing anything profound, but I'm certainly not a serial killer. But I've always been a bit of an alchemist and like to mix things up and also seek what is happening under the radar. So it started with me when my grandfather took me to Chinatown when I was 5 years old to go get illegal fireworks. And that kind of the process of going into this kind of shady alley and handing someone money and getting a brown bag full of fireworks, that just like the coolest thing to me ever. And I remember walking out of that alleyway and seeing the wheat pasted posters that were weathered and coming off the walls. And I'm like, this is just so cool. And you see that moment in a lot of my artwork. I love the kind of ephemeral stuff.
I love that story. I just think that's a great childhood memory. It's the little bit of rebellion. You can see exactly where rebellion starts to come from in a child from a story like that.
Totally. That was the moment for me. And ever since then, I was totally didn't draw in between the lines. My parents had to come to school because teachers were like, there's something wrong with your son. He just doesn't want to do what we tell him to do. And looking back, that's kind of made me a good artist to be like, you know what? F you. I'm going to do what I want. But, I've always kind of did my own thing and didn't listen to the conventional wisdom. So when I heard about Bitcoin, I was immediately intrigued. There was kind of like this thing that was being used for a dark underworld. And to me, that was kind of like the Chinatown alley of the new age. I didn't partake in any of those, Silk Road things, but the idea that there was this culture going on with this digital currency that was supposed to be disruptive, I found it fascinating. And in 2013, I bought multiple Bitcoin. That kind of led me into this kind of digital currency world. I sold it all. I maybe made $500, thought I was a big baller then. Had I held on to it, been a different story.
Needless to say, if you're starting in 2013, had you held on to it, that would have been a brilliant thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But then the idea of digital collectibles came on the scene. And I remember thinking, this is something that it blew my mind. Like right away, I got it. And the way that I received it was, wow, I can reach out to my collectors instantly and give back to them because everything is ledgered. And that's, for me, that's a really important thing, is the connection between the people who bought my work. Because when you, as an artist, create a painting, if you start thinking about who is buying your painting, like you automatically lose that kind of heart's tie to the work. And for someone to acquire the painting after you have put your heart and soul into it, I believe there's a strong connection there. And NFTs and blockchain, that kind of allows that connection to exist. So I got into it probably in late 2020. I bought, I was around for minting Super Yetis and Bored Apes and all that. And at first, it was a bit of just an avalanche of information, but I really did take some time to pause and see how I can utilize this technology to amplify what I want to do with my art and take it to new levels. And right now, I'm in a place where I'm like, I feel like a whole new artist, not because I'm creating digital work, but I'm able to extend what I'm capable of with my fine art.
What I love about what you're saying is you saw the technology as a way actually to connect and to give back. And there's so much talk right now about the other side of it, which is I can see my work and I can watch it transact and I can watch the frequency of the transaction, and the frequency of the transaction drives the royalty. And now we're dealing with kind of should people have royalties? How do we manage the royalty payments? All of that. And it's really interesting. The first that I heard when I first discovered NFTs, one of the key use cases that I heard about that made me think was, okay, artists can collect royalties as things transact. That makes a lot of sense. But actually, as an artist, you looked at it the other way and you looked at it as I can keep in touch and I can give.
Yep. I've never been one to try to extract value. I've always tried to give value. I believe that comes back around tenfold. I really do. I look at where I am right now and I see I started up a business, and for the first time, I am reaching out to people that I've helped along the way. And it's amazing to me how many people just stopped whatever they were doing to help me. I've never really asked for help much from people or asked favors. And it's beautiful to see people kind of rallying around and willing to like open up their Rolodex for me, because I believe that extracting value and not giving back is totally temporary. It's a short-term gain for a long-term loss. And I think this Web3 world is a long game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The connection that you build in, let's see about forever, but it can be more permanent. You've got something that sits on a ledger. It's there. It is not a fleeting campaign. It is not a letter that can easily be lost. It is there. It is on record. That connection is there, and you'll always have that wallet address to be able to connect back to. So it's a powerful connection. I love the thought, and I totally agree with you that the karma comes around. But with so much kind of controversy and so many people talking about royalties, it would be hard for me not to ask your opinion on all this.
Totally. So it's interesting. I remember I had a conversation with, I hate name dropping, so excuse me here, but Swizz Beats, who's a big advocate for arts. And he had a really interesting take on artists fine artists and royalties. And he made it clear to me, as clear to most people, but for some reason it didn't resonate with me right away, is that anytime a song is played, an artist gets royalties. Like, why wouldn't a fine artist be entitled to some sort of royalty? So I had this conversation before CryptoKitties were even minted. And so blockchain and NFTs do answer that. I do know that there's ways around it now that I hear, but I think here's my take on it, right? You're stripping away innovation. You're taking away the opportunity for artists to continue to innovate and incentivize them to produce more work. There are the amount of creative people that I have met in the past year, especially in the CryptoPunks community. It's mind-blowing what some of these people are up to. And a lot of these projects and a lot of these people are using royalties to help fund their projects. And long-term, a lot of the things that they're innovating are things that are going to be extremely valuable to the people who are in the space now, which is in its infancy. So I'm a big believer in royalties. I think it's the fair thing. I don't think it's egregious by artists unless they're taking some heavy percentage. I look at it as a way of innovation. That's my take on it.
I don't disagree. I think you get into something, you look at what the terms and conditions are when you get into something. If it says, here's a royalty, why are you looking for a way around that? Like, those were the terms and conditions when you got into it. Keep that end of the bargain. And it's as simple as that. And I don't think everybody needs to have royalties. People can choose not to. But I do think that when you go into an agreement, you honor the agreement. That's the end of the story. And I think that, like you say, this is something that's really accelerating a community and giving people who wouldn't have access to venture capital a way of actually raising money and building projects. So it's quite interesting. And then some of those obviously get venture, but you're also getting a lot of people who wouldn't get investment otherwise able to build some interesting projects. So I think your opinion makes sense. I love the Swissbeatz story because I'd never really thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Like, musicians make royalties. Everyone else makes royalties. Why wouldn't a fine artist?
Yeah, I mean, he's a really big advocate for fine artists. And yeah, I mean, he simplified it really easy to me. It just stuck with me. I'm not out there like campaigning for royalties. It's just my take on it. I see so many people who are banking on it and how important it is. I also know projects who are, I'm not going to name names, that are just totally cashing in on artist royalties, and they're not innovating.
Yeah. There's always going to be extractors, and what we hopefully see is more producers than extractors.
That's what I witness. There's a lot more producers.
I like to believe that. I'm an optimist at heart. Man, it's hard to believe that this week, though. It does feel like there's a lot of extractors this week.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, look, there's going to be this situation until there's some sort of regulation, which I hope this kind of stuff is going to happen. And I think ultimately we come out stronger on these things because it kind of weeds out some of the bad people and the light kind of shines on the good. We've all had our rug pulls. I've gotten scammed multiple times, and my wallet doesn't lie.
It should not be a rite of passage, but somehow it feels like it has been. As we were saying, so long as there's more builders and more producers, we're in a good place. But you have, I mean, aside from the kind of fine art side, you've been quite a builder. You've built out Degen Arcade and others. So can you tell us a little bit about Degen Arcade, what you built over at NFT.NYC and what you got going on next?
Yeah, so it started before, I want to say 2 years before COVID. I walked into an abandoned dry cleaner, kind of took it over, made it into a cultural hub, went from like this old beat down dry cleaner to the windows of Saks Fifth Avenue in 6 months. It was the craziest ride. We were building out experiential things for big brands like Lululemon, Saks, you name it. And then COVID hit. And we were all kind of, those who entered the NFT space were pushing buttons, minting things behind their computer. And once we started thawing out, I saw huge opportunities to bring my experience with doing brand activations into the Web3 space. And I said, how do I do this in a fun way that kind of speaks to the culture of Web3? And I remember meeting a friend from, what I knew from Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse, and I knew his as his PFP. And during the first NFT.NYC, we met. I'm like, whoa, this is, it's so crazy putting a name to the face. And I always had my face out there. I was never really my PFP, which is my CryptoPunk now. But I was like, the connection that people are having in real life is really, really important, especially in this kind of fully transparent because of the blockchain, but fully opaque because of like a lot of the scammers and the fact that you can't meet people in person. So I was like, I need to create an arcade that is full of NFTs. And I'm going to do it for the next NFT NYC. And I spoke with my partners. One of them is about as OG as they come, Tony Herrera, and another OG. We could call him Art So Fly, but he's, to me, known as Daniel. And we did an activation as a proof of concept during the last NFT NYC. We were situated between Hermes and the Whitney Museum, which is really funny to me, and like the most posh street in New York City. And here was this thing that popped up called the Degen Arcade. And we had pizza party for Nest Graphics and Snuffy, who are two incredible artists in the space. I'm totally admirers of their work. We had the Nifty Portal kick off NFT NYC from our space for their morning show. And it was just a huge success. But the big picture of the Degen Arcade was to make Web3 accessible for everyone and to use it as an on-ramp through something that is fun, nostalgic, and something that people will easily connect to and remove the barrier to entry. And that's what we're doing. I could break some news here.
I'm never going to say no to that. Go ahead.
We have an animated series that is kind of not in the work. It's basically done. It's not like your typical, everyone has a new animated series using their punks and their apes. This is something different. For Art Basel, which I'll get to, we partner with Haritos. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The creative director of Haritos, or art director, is a close friend of mine from before Web3. He comes from like the high fashion world. Super genuine guy. He came on board with Haritos. They did an NFT drop. He called me up. He's like, look, we want to continue to give back to our collectors and do amazing things in the space. So we partnered with them, the Degen Arcade. They're part of our animated series. Their project called Bones by Haritos is amazing. I'm not just flexing it because I work with them. They truly have their collectors' interests at heart. And that I would never, as someone like, I pride myself on working with people who are altruistic, and I know the kind of people they are and what they're planning on giving back. So they've been a great partner, and they're part of our animated series, which is going to feature some Bones, our CryptoPunks, some Bored Apes. But it's the point of the animated series is to educate. And that is a different thing. We are trying to, there's so much crazy stuff that happens in this space in 1 week. Think about what happened this week in crypto alone. Think about what just happened in the past 2 days. Talking about, if you were to explain to someone about like the crypto dick butt ball gala that was like eyes wide shut, and you spoke to a regular person, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
No one would believe these stories.
But it's real. So like if we can bottle this up and talk about how crazy our world is, but do it under the backdrop of this kind of like centralization versus decentralization, this kind of gray world versus this colorful world, we have something. And we could explain the importance of Web3 and the importance of safe onboarding through a really fun script. And we worked with Justin Shankrow, who's one of the voices of Hey Arnold, a fellow CryptoPunk, to help do the animation. And hopefully we'll have something to show for Art Basel. I know it's all the voiceovers are done and that's going to be coming out. But to Art Basel, we are partnering again with Haritos and Don Julio. And we are taking over an old, well, I wouldn't call it an old, it's a vintage style arcade in the heart of Wynwood, Miami. And it is going to be wild. I mean, it is going to be the place. Like, this is my strong suit, is creating a space where people don't want to leave. They want to come, they want to hang out, have a tequila on the rocks or Jarritos or a mixture of both.
Sounds like a good mix, Liliaritos and Don Julio. Sounds like a perfect pair.
And hang out. We're going to have live DJs. It's not going to be one of those Basel events that you're just going to go in, get something and leave. You're going to want to hang out, let it be a hub for the Web3 community. And so that is what we have going on for Art Basel. And we're partnering with other communities like CryptoPunks and Pop.
Last time we spoke, you told me an amazing story, and I think I'm going to try to get you to repeat it.
Sure.
About how you found that arcade, because that was just a fantastic story that you told me about going down to Miami and looking for the space.
Yeah. So we found an arcade in Miami, and we flew down. It was like 3 hours. You know, as an artist, I go to my studio, I hang out there, I paint. Like, I don't do the business world thing where I'm traveling and racking up sky miles. But I flew out to Miami just for a meeting, went to this arcade. Jarritos flew in with us, and we walked in there. It was huge. It was massive. It was like extremely Miami, where they had like a lounge and all this. It was a huge undertaking, and it's great for like a really big party, but it lacked a bit of the intimacy that we want in a space where everyone feels like it's exclusive, but it's inclusive. So we were kind of like disheartened, and we were getting back in the car to go back to the airport. I was just like, oh, now we need to take another trip down here. And we stop by, like, we see this sign on the side of the road, and we get out of the car, and it said like something like arcade. It was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but my partner got out of the car, looked in, and he sees like all these like IV bags like hanging in the window. He's like, nah, man, this is like not what we think it is. It's like a wellness clinic. And I'm like, I'm just going to take another look while we're here. So I get out of the car and I go around, and there's these like blacked out windows, like, and this next to that where that wellness clinic was, and it's set back, and there's like, you can't see it at all. And I knock on the door. Nobody's answering. I call the number. Nobody's answering. I knock on the door again. My buddy from Jarritos is calling. And then suddenly someone opens the door. And it was like, the guy's a really nice guy. So I don't want to say anything bad about him, because he's been super helpful and a really smart guy. But it was like he hasn't seen people in like 3 weeks. So he opens up the door. And here we are. It was like, the way I think I described it to you was like the Hawaiian Tropics bus just like pulled up. Like, we were just like, we had a crew of people. We're like, we're going to take over this space, and we're going to make it the coolest event in Art Basel. Because like, oh, let's do this. But we walked in, and it was so serendipitous in so many ways. And these kind of things happen. I remember just the other week when my partner was in LA doing the voiceovers for closing out the animated series. And he sees a rocket just right after they got done, like shooting up in the sky. He's like, oh man, like someone just launched a nuke at us. But it turned out it was like SpaceX rocket, just like shot up right behind him out of nowhere. And they were just like, it just felt like the champagne bottle popping. And it feels like so many things are working out. And we've all been people who have come into this space and have done right by so many people. And it feels like we're finally building this project for the community. If I told you a little bit more about our plans, we're going way past just Web3. It's just, things are just working out beautifully. And this event is going to be amazing. And it's going to celebrate the culture and give back. And it's just going to be great.
I live on the other side of the world, but I've got total FOMO. I'm wishing that I could make it.
Yeah.
But it is, being from Singapore, it is literally the opposite side of the world.
Yeah, no, it totally is.
So I will be living vicariously through Twitter and Instagram posts, and hopefully a few Web3 drops and a few things that I can catch up on there. That'll be me. But it sounds amazing. And I think it sounds also like you've got so much going on with animated series where you're giving people a peek in there. You've got the Degen Arcade there. You've got a lot going on in 3 weeks to go. And you're working with a brand on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Big question, right? I work with a lot of brands. I would love to hear your point of view. What makes for a great brand collaboration? Like, it sounds like with Jarritos that you've really got a shared vision. But what do you think it takes to succeed in a brand collaboration? What does a brand need to give to make that work?
Time. They need to be patient. They can't look at ROIs right away. And that's kind of the beauty of Haritos is the art director is, there's no red tape. He talks right to the CEO and they're doing things. The CEO believes in him and he believes in us and he believes in the culture. So it's really easy to get things done. But for a brand, it's really hard with a lot of the corporate red tape when they're not seeing that ROI. And it takes time and good, I'm going to use the word again, altruistic, approach to it, to stay in there, do it for the culture and not try to extract right away, but give back and understand the communities, and understand the psychology. We're not there yet where you're dealing with the mass adoption where they're going to speak to their average consumer that they're used to. This is a different kind of consumer. And you got to kind of play into the psychology of these consumers. And the psychology is they want to see something real. Everyone has had their battle scars. They've had their rug pulls. They've had their wallet drained. They've bought rugs. They want to see a brand come to the space and not leave.
Listen, I think the biggest trend in marketing, the word that everybody has used for years now, has been authenticity. And authenticity doesn't happen fast. Authenticity is not something you can be overnight. Authenticity takes dedication. It takes being honest with who the audience is and who you are. I love the description, one word, time. It says all you really need if you're going to drive home that authenticity.
Yeah. If I was a brand or if I was advising a brand, I'd say allocate a certain budget, carve it out, start here, get the right people in place, that are already in the community. And don't look at what you're getting back from that right away. Just be there and be present. I think that's what is going to set apart a lot of the brands that come in successfully. I mean, I've been talking to brands and they were like, oh, we tried exploring Web3 and it didn't really work out. I'm like, I didn't even hear about what you did. So, there's only a handful of brands who are doing it right.
Are there any projects you really admire? You don't have to name any names if you don't want to.
I don't mind.
Yeah, okay, great.
A couple of projects I really admire. So I think what Yuga Labs is doing is amazing. They're really good dudes. And, all the bad shit that went around, all those lies, it's all nonsense. And the guy who's running CryptoPunks, Noah, really is has the right, almost viciously protective over the CryptoPunks and their legacy. So I think that they're doing amazing things. And I think they're going to strategically align with good brands in the future. I mean, the Adidas thing, that was a little shaky for a while with the Kanye thing. Some brands, I think Artifact is amazing. I think the Nike acquisition was brilliant. They're going to continue to innovate. They're 4 years ahead of everyone. And it's hard to quantify when you're that far ahead. NFC chips in my shoes. Am I ready for that? I don't know. There's another project that I think is really interesting. And I'm not, this isn't incestuous bad term, but my partner Tony is involved with a project called OX Strip. And it's these 3D glasses that have snap-on lenses that you could take off and on, with these earth magnets. It's amazing. And then they're going to have NFC chips in there. It's going to interact with other things. Let me think what else. Some of the good projects that I know. I'm trying to think.
There are. What I'm happy about, if I'm really honest, is a week like this feels like everybody's talking about the negative side of this space and you're seeing a whole bunch of negative news. But I will tell you, I'm still getting calls from brands who are looking at it and they're not sitting there saying, what can we sell? They're saying, actually, how can we use these technologies to maintain a connection with our consumers? Exactly coming back to what you said at the very beginning of what you wanted with your art. I think in some ways, the money and the value can sometimes make it too easy not to see where the real value and the real connection can actually come up, or the longer term value can appear.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm seeing so much right now. Amazing. Just kind of as a builder, as an artist in this space, do you have, I always like to ask people if they have any kind of random predictions of what they expect to see coming up. Where do you expect things to go? You talk to a lot of people. Where do you expect things to evolve to? over the next year. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of projects unfortunately die out because they're going to run out of money. That is the pessimistic, but I believe the realistic view of some of the Web3, the NFT projects that came out. I think a lot of them will rise, and they're going to rise based on their community. It's going to build the projects up. And I think we're going to start seeing more Web3 adoption, mass adoption. And when that happens, I think it's going to be massive. I am afraid that the infrastructure is not set up yet to help people be safe once they're in Web3. I think that is something that needs to be addressed. It's something that we're trying to do, because I believe that when Starbucks comes out with their loyalty NFTs, which is coming out probably in weeks, Reddit did it. I mean, we're going to get this flood of people that are coming into this space, but don't know how to protect their seed phrase.
Yeah.
And it's scary to me that it's going to create more negative talk because they don't know how to stay safe.
Yeah, I expect in some cases we'll see a lot of halfway houses, a lot of custodial solutions is what I expect we'll see. But it doesn't change the fact that when you look at what you're seeing outside of that space, I mean, it's one thing for one brand to try to do things that have low value, no value collectibles. But even I don't think Reddit ever expected what they put out there to trade at the value that it did. But the point, I guess, is that even the kind of custodial side, you can see what's going wrong with it right now. There is a lot of truth to the not your keys, not your coins statement.
Yes, true. There has to be some solution there, and we're working on it. It's one of the things that we're trying to do, as well as educate.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, we're getting to a pretty good time. I've got to wrap things up here pretty quick, but I think what you've got going on is amazing. Like I said, I've got more than a little bit of FOMO right now and wish I could be in Art Basel, but unfortunately I can't. I am going to ask you just a few random questions just to get to know a little bit more about you. Those questions, I'd love to know, A, have you ever bought something, collected something, sold it, and really regretted selling it after? What's the collection that you look back at and you go, oh, wish I still had that one? Is there one? Or do you just keep it all?
I'm notorious for keeping it all, which is probably a problem because I got a wallet full of bad NFTs. I mean, I had a lot of things I sold early. There's a lot of art blocks pieces that I wish I had. Right now, I'm really hot on Tezos because I love art, and some of the work there is part of my language shit. Some of it is amazing, and it's not expensive, and I think it's incredible.
That's interesting. I don't think many people spend much time in Tezos NFTs. What are some of your favorite collections there?
You know what? I don't even look at the collections as much as I look at just the art, which is what is beautiful about it. It's like I don't even know a lot of the artists. I know that it's really generative. It's generative art. And I look at it like this. This is how I explained it to someone the other day. NFTs are not going anywhere. They're here to stay. They may take different forms in the sense of like medical records and what have you. But generative art is a moment that is going to be locked in art history. It's indisputable. So the idea that coding is now it's creating art. This is like that kind of post-war contemporary abstract expressionism. This is that moment that we're in. So I'm not saying that Tezos is a good investment. I'm saying I look at some of that art because I love it and I keep it pure. I don't look at the artist. I just look at the art if I like it. But really, art blocks to me is where, the creme de la creme, if you will, that stuff. And outside of art blocks, there's one of my favorite projects in the entire NFT space. I'm going to drop it here. And it's Terraforms by Math Castles. It is a rabbit hole, but it is one of the most interesting generative art projects I've ever seen. And I think it's got historical value once people really take a look at it.
I love it.
I only own one and I sold a bunch,
I don't think anyone can accuse someone of pumping their bags today, especially not when you've already said you don't usually sell just about anything. So if that's the case.
Oh, I'm buying more. Trust me.
But I love this, a little Easter egg to wrap things up with, something for everybody to dive into and look at. So look, everyone, thank you very much for joining. And thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate everything you've had to say. I'm super excited for what you're building. I am really, really wishing that I could be at Art Basel, but I know so many people that will be, and I'll be living vicariously through them. But looking forward to hearing all about how Degen Arcade does, how your animated series goes, how everything's moving forward, and look forward to catching up again in the near term. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I wish I could tell you more about what we have plans, but I'm tight-lipped. I've called my attorney soon, so hopefully I can start revealing things soon.
Yeah, this is the reason for another call later. The reason for a follow-up. We'll do that after Art Basel, and you can tell us more. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you for joining, everyone. That was Jeremy Penn. I was hoping that hearing about Art Basel from someone who would be there would satiate my desire to go, but instead it's just made the FOMO worse. Anyways, I hope all of you who are going enjoy it. I'll be keeping tabs on the action from the other side of the world. But now let's close the show. You've been listening to the Brand Next podcast, where I talk to the builders, innovators, and leaders who are scaling Web3 and working to ensure it delivers on its positive potential. If you enjoyed listening, you can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that you like listening to podcasts. And please give us a 5-star review. It really helps with reach and everything else that we're trying to achieve as part of the show. If you really enjoy the content and want to find out more, you can also subscribe to the accompanying Brand Next newsletter at brandnext.substack.com. The link is in the show notes. And thank you again for listening. And until next time, take care.